read that it's off. So first thing on the agenda is approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. I've got those in your packets.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Yes,
As
sir.
presented.
Got a motion, got a second. Any further discussion? Minutes are approved.
JJ, do you want to carry on? Number 2 or number 3?
Daily auction log. I don't have a copy of that. Oh, there it is. Okay. Okay. Any questions on the content?
No, sir. I'll make a motion
Go
to
ahead.
approve the daily action log. As
A
presented.
motion?
I just have one question on it. On 5/4/25, that number was 68 applied. Is that pretty typical for the number of folks you lose just from the application process to how many remain after the exam and the physical fitness test?
15 remain. After we've gone through the process up to backgrounds. They're still in backgrounds right now, but we've got 15 that are still on the list from the original 68 that applied.
Is that a pretty typical ratio? Or is that anything to be concerned about?
No, I don't think so. We usually do have a lot of fallout. We had a good amount of the 68 that applied didn't show up. I mean, 21, that was huge, and that brought our number down quite a bit.
Good point. Anything further?
Move forward? No?
Okay, so we already have a motion. We have a second?
All those in favor?
Okay, you have a second? Okay, we have a motion to approve, have a second. No further discussion? All in favor, aye? Okay, motion's approved. Daily action log is approved as written. Okay. Now we get to the meat of the meeting here. Consideration of appeals for the Police Department Sergeant Lieutenant promotional exams administered on June 26, 2025. The first one up for consideration is consider Sergeant appeal of exam questions 21, 23, and 24 from the source material out of posted parameters.
Yes, so on A, I wanted to put this item on the agenda first because this was one of the questions on the sergeant's exam that was appealed was because it was out of the source material range. When finding that, there's actually a total of 3. So we wanted to bring that to the commission to let you know there's a total of 3, 21, 23, and 24 on the sergeant's exam. The test writers included material that was outside of the range. So while only one was challenged, there is a total of the 3.
Okay.
So we want to get your guidance on would you like to leave it as is, go with the one challenge question for it being out of the range. Test writers replied that they did believe that it should be tossed. It's from source material not provided.
My question is, I view it so we have 2 options, either throw out the questions or give them credit for all of them getting it right, even though they weren't correct. Of the 2, which one has the least impact?
I would think giving someone, as I mentioned before, normally in this case, you have one of 2 options. You give credit for the question, and somebody who may not have passed now will pass. You give everybody credit for that question. Or the other option is take it out. So now your 100-question test is now a 97-question test. So you're grading on a 97 as opposed to 100. Somebody who may have passed may now fail. Because if they pick that incorrect answer, the bad question, the right answer for the bad question, they got credit for it initially. So if you take that out, Now you may have a failure that you didn't have before. So those are the two options. And historically, I'm not sure what's been done historically. The recommendation from the consultant is to award credit for that question. And that's probably the lesser of the two evils. But, and again, in my history, 30 years doing this in the military, and well, if it's a bad question, we take it out. We take it out and we pay the consequences because it's a bad question. But this is a different environment, so I think the question is, do we keep them in and give them credit for it, or do we take it out and grade on another scale?
There wouldn't be anybody, if we toss the question, that would no longer be eligible, or they would be off the list, and that wouldn't add anybody to the list that wasn't on the list. Everybody would actually gain, their grade would increase. There would be a change in ranking. It would move two people around. First and second place would move, and third and fourth place would move.
That's if we give them credit.
If we take them out.
If we threw the three questions out and went on a 97-question test.
So really, there's no major change. It might be the ranking situation, but nobody's going to be taken off. Yeah.
Right, nobody will be added or removed from the list
Okay.
based on throwing the three questions out. But there would be the small movement in ranking. And that's just, we ran that just based on the three questions, not on any of the other challenged questions.
Sure, sure. Okay. You know, because if it's a bad question, it should be taken out. You know, in my mind, it should be taken out, so.
So you're just going to points for it. You guys okay with that?
You want to throw it out, right?
You wanted to throw it out. I say just give them a point.
Well, either way, it's not going to affect anything here. Well, I'm looking at the future, the precedents, whatever precedents we set.
Correct.
You know, if it's a bad question, in my mind, it should be taken out of the test. You know, if somebody were to lose by that, I've dealt with this more than a few times, you know, I understand. But in this case, it's going to be I call it a win-win, but it's not going to, there's going to be no harm, no foul on this one, either way we go. But looking towards the future, I'm thinking, I want to make sure we do what's right, because if it's a bad question, it shouldn't be there. And to give somebody credit for a bad question, that just doesn't sit well with him, and we can do it if that's what the majority wants to do. I'm more inclined to take it out of the test. So, but we can, you know, that'll be up to us. Does anybody have any comment on that?
Do you guys have any
Does
thoughts?
anybody have anything to say?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's on. Barry White, if, in the argument or the discussion here, if you give credit for a bad question, and I'm not talking about how it affects the testers. If you give credit for a bad question, then the people who got it right, or the people who got it right still got it right. The people who got it wrong now have it right when it wasn't covered by the material in the first place. And so they gain ground on the people who answered the question correctly, even though it wasn't covered by the materials. So I agree with the dismiss the question from the test and go based off of the now, I guess, 97. That's my opinion.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And is there any follow-up going against what the consultant recommends? Or is it?
No,
Okay.
it's solely, the decision rests with you guys. And I may have mentioned that incorrectly at the beginning. They did not recommend to throw it out. They recommend to give everybody credit.
Yeah.
Our view is we've never done that. It's usually thrown out, but you can decide however you'd like to on that.
Okay.
I'm okay with throwing it out.
Well, to me, that makes more sense.
Awesome.
So, yeah, so we've had this before in the past, so usually we do this, just my recommendation as well is throw it out. So I'll make a motion, throw it, are we just doing this one or all the improper,
Well, it would be
the three?
21, 23,
Yeah,
and
for
24.
A, it's all three questions that are from
Right,
outside
okay.
the source material.
Yeah, so I'll make a motion to throw all three out.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we have a motion
Hang on.
to,
JJ, just 1 second. The appellants on this, I mean, now's your opportunity to come up and speak if there's any more public comment. I just want to make that clear. Okay, never mind.
Murr.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion at all? Okay, then we've decided to throw the questions out. Those 3 questions are removed from the test. We'll grade on the new scale, and we'll live with the outcome of that. Okay. Our next one is consider sergeant appeals of exam questions 21, 50, 78, and 100. So we just looked at 21, so.
21 was challenged on a different reason,
Right.
other than it not being outside the source material, but since we're throwing that question out, we can skip question 21. 23 was, of course, the challenge of it being outside the source material, so we'll move on to question 50. And in your packets, we have the question. This is regarding if a person commits an offense of robbery. The exam was keyed for answer B. The appellant that challenged this question says that they should accept A and B as they are both correct. The consultant recommends to keep the question. They said it's a valid question that requires no action. I've included the page out of the book for source material right behind the question. I can read that out for everyone in the room. A person commits an offense of robbery if in the course of committing theft as defined in Chapter 31 and with intent to obtain or maintain control of the property, he does which of the following? A, unintentionally or recklessly causing bodily injury to another. B, intentionally or knowingly threatens or places another in fear of imminent bodily injury or death. C, knowingly or recklessly causes serious bodily injury to himself. Or D, none of the above are correct. So it was keyed as B, and the appellant is saying A and B would both be correct.
So in A, the big catch there is unintentionally. That's the big difference right there.
Yes. On this question of the 11 people that took the test, 2 did get it incorrect, 11 got it correct. We provided that test breakdown for you guys.
Right, yeah. 11 out of 13 were correct and 2.
2 got this question wrong.
Okay, I look at this is a question, we used to call this a reasoning or comparison question, where you look at the words. And unintentionally, recklessly, unintentionally is the key word there because it says intentionally in your reference material. So that's the big catch right there. That right there tells me anyhow that that's not the right answer. Intentionally, knowingly threatens placement, that's verbatim out of the book. I know it's kind of a razor's edge, but that's the way I was looking at it. I don't know what would you gentlemen think. But.
It's a hard question the way that's written, and it's
Oh, yeah.
it's about thick of this paper, that, like what you're talking about right there, but
It's a poorly written question, I agree.
yes.
Or at least the answers are not, yeah.
The question I have is the folks that did get it right, why did they get it right and not pick that option? Because Because how we're processing it is different than seasoned law enforcement that's taken this exam. And I don't know.
And you're absolutely correct. I was going to talk about my experience. Usually we don't use the word unintentionally. It's intentionally, recklessly, or knowingly. And so those are things that we go by. So yeah, so when I read it, I look to try to think about what is a test taker thinking, or try to process, how he came to that rationalization. And so, looking at the word unintentional, that's an act that occurs without conscious objective. And then recklessly involves a conscious disregard of substantial and unjustifiable risk. So we know that in the penal code, when we look at these laws and stuff, we have to use exactly those words and know what those meanings are. So we have to apply them in our daily routine or duties that we uphold. And so I think in my opinion, is to agree that this answer is correct the way it's presented, based on how I read it.
Okay, well, I appreciate that insight, because that was the only thing I was struggling with. I know how I'm reading it and I'm interpreting it, but I'm not a law enforcement person, and I'm not sure what the background is, the education, et cetera, so.
Unintentional, it's not a culpable mental state in the penal
Right.
code, so.
Yeah.
To keep it, I nominate, or I recommend to keep it as is.
I think we have the appellant.
Was there, we have any, yeah. Morning.
I'm a police officer for 9 years. Oh, is it not on?
Is it green?
It's not, there's green. I've been a police officer for 9 years. I'm the appellate, and I'll tell you, you guys have answered my question, or not answered my question, but you've done a lot of my explanation. Unintentional is not a culpable mental state. However, recklessly is the reckless disregard. And when you file a robbery charge, if I were to steal a case of beer and run out of store and unintentionally run somebody over and cause injury, I've still committed a robbery. And that was my thought process behind it is, let me agree that it's a good question. It's a poor answer, because to me, unintentional not being a culpable mental state, reckless covers unintentional. Because if I charge that charge, I don't care if they unintentionally or intentionally charge it. If they run them over, reckless covers it. I don't need intentionality out of it. That was my thought process behind it. And to me, that is used more often than threatened bodily injury, because we don't have a lot of armed holdups here. We have somebody running people over unintentionally or recklessly and causes injury, and it's a robbery. That's my 9 years of experience, and that's why I answered the question the way I did. So, yes, sir.
There were two people. Was the other individual here that needs to speak, or? Oh.
I don't know that, I'm up here because this is also on the lieutenant's test, so it kind of overlaps. So I agree with Officer Mitchell that it's a poorly written answer. I think the question is okay, but when you look at the answer options, so I didn't answer either one of them. When you look at the answer options, it says unintentional or reckless. Well, when I read that, I know that unintentional, that's one of the very basics of the penal code, is the 4 culpable mental states. And so I say that's an answer that unintentionally or reckless. To me, when I read it, I thought, well, they're just describing reckless. The unintentional or reckless kind of expounding on reckless, because it's not one of the other 3. So I kind of disregarded that answer until I got to the next one. The next one is word for word for robbery, so that's an option. And then I thought, well, reckless, maybe it is describing unintentionally, right? Unintentionally is describing reckless. So as far as I was concerned, A and B were both correct. I can't pick one, so to me, D was correct. So that was my, so we might be able to skip that one in the lieutenant's portion. Thank you.
On the lieutenant's exam as a challenge, have it on the next item, but it is also challenged on the lieutenant's exam.
Question 34.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, question 34 and the LT is the same question. 6, 32 correct, 4 incorrect on that one. So it's a high miss for those guys. It wasn't a high miss for sergeant's exam, it was a high miss for lieutenant's exam. See, I'm just looking at it literally. I'm looking at the words and interpreting the words. And I see unintentional and I see intentional. To me, that's how I separate it. Me, that's how I would separate it on the test. Well,
We're on the line item for sergeant, and we'll bring it up. It is
Yeah.
also listed again for lieutenant.
yeah,
So
it may affect how we, I mean, it's kind of, we're kind of bending in here.
I think we could open that one up if you want
We bring both discussions.
to, yeah. discuss
We might as
at the
well,
same
it's the
time.
same question, yeah, it's gonna be,
Sergeant John Bellini, the other argument on the two is that there's two sections of the law for robbery, and only one of them is listed. And so by reading the question, if they commit the offense of robbery, it could be one of two different definitions, right? And so if they're not both listed, then none of the answers are correct. At least that's an opinion. Do you see where I'm going with that?
okay.
I agree that what they say is the right answer is verbatim from the book, but there's also a second section. It's one or the other.
Oh,
That's-
or intentionally or knowingly threaten or and intentionally, knowingly or recklessly causing bodily injury to another?
Yes, sir. That's section one. Or intentionally, knowingly
Right.
threatens or places another in fear of imminent bodily injury or death.
Right.
So there are two different ways you can get charged with robbery,
Right.
and that is completely not in the options at all.
And again, just from what I'm seeing here, for A, that is pretty much what number one is, right? Intentionally, knowingly, or recklessly causing bodily injury to another. Only here it says unintentionally. That's the big change right there.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Hello, I'm Sergeant Mark Medley with San Angelo Police Department.
Oh, sorry.
And I'll add comment to this one as well. And I do see the black and white straight out of the penal code. And when I'm taking the test, I'm looking at that and saying, I know I answered A. I overthought the question. In looking at that and starting to debate it, I ask you, is the law black and white or is it gray? Because everything goes to court and you're judged by your peers. And then what is between unintentional and reckless? If I say, I accidentally shot this man, it was unintentional. I'm still going to be held accountable for it. You go before your peers because it's a gray area. Is this reckless or was it completely unintentional? So I just ask for your consideration in it and the thinking. I do realize this is on me for overthinking it. I overcomplicated the question, but that's where the test taker, where I came from. I just wanted you to know that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name's Adrian Castro. I got the answer correct, and I saw that you can throw out questions. I don't want that to happen. I answered it because it's verbatim the right answer. Like you said, there's a reason we got it right, there's a reason we got it wrong. I would just recommend that you take into consideration that it was answered properly because it was verbatim the correct answer, and that the question doesn't get thrown out. I would like to get credit for it, and I would assume that the other ones, their confusion, the misinterpretation, the overthinking, possibly would warrant them credit as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
the test writer recommendation is to keep the question as is. You could select to keep or to give credit to anyone that answered A or B.
Okay,
Or D.
for 50, right?
So, I've been there, not saying I'm any better. We know that when we take these tests, we see these tests before, even in the academy, where they kind of write these questions and they kind of make you think a little bit more into it and so forth. So yes, I do agree with what you guys are saying, every one of you. And I do agree that, when you see something like this, you make yourself think, and you said, okay, what are they trying to do? What are they trying to get me to think here? And so forth. So yes, I've seen questions like this before, and to make it fair, in my opinion, is since we're talking about a few that did miss it, you said how many?
2. On the sergeant's exam, we had 2 out of 13 get it wrong. On the lieutenant's exam, we had 4 out of 6 get it wrong. So, yeah.
Yeah, so to be honest, to feel fair about everything, I think that everybody should get credit because it is, I've seen it, and I hate those type of questions. I really do. I've seen it before in the past, and from my experience, and in my opinion, I think it'd be fair that everybody got credit for that one question.
So my question is, did everybody put A, B, or D, and nobody put C? Did anybody put C as an answer on that question?
Yes, he did. Yeah.
They
I
did or
know
didn't?
on the lieutenant's exam, 2 of the 4 that got it incorrect did put A as the answer.
So we can make a
2 of them did
determination-
not.
Okay, so we can make a determination that we'll accept A, B, or D as a response for that question on the sergeant and the lieutenant? Or-
I would give pushback on D because the 2
Thank you,
above
yes.
are correct.
I was about to say the same
Yeah.
thing, yeah. None of the above are correct. B is definitely without question correct.
That would be the way I'm reading that.
I was about to say the same thing, yeah.
But be glad to hear anybody's rebuttal on that, but that's.
Does anybody have any thoughts on D? On D? D. Delta?
I still make the same argument that there's 2 sections to the law and one of them is missing. And so in the past, when we've been asked questions of, on this, if there's certain listed highways that are excluded from the hazmat zone, right? This was something from the sergeant's test years ago. There was a typo. And so none of the above was the only proper answer because one of the questions was, it wasn't a full answer. So that's why my argument of D is it's not, there's 2 sections to robbery. It's 1 and 2, and they only listed 1.
Right.
So that's my argument.
Okay. It's that one word, intentionally, unintentionally, in the one. So,
I think
Right.
I
Yeah,
got
that's-
back and realized I didn't make a statement. I agree that after I read the consultant's response, I agree B is correct. I just know that I misunderstood A because I thought that there's no way that they think we are going to mistake unintentional to be a culpable mental state. And anyway, I agree with B, even though I picked the wrong answer. My original argument was that A was correct, or was a possibility, and so A and B were correct, so then to me, D should be the most accurate answer, but I was wrong on A after seeing the explanation. Thank you.
The consultant recommendation I see says question is valid and requires no action. In other words, it stands as it is. If you got it wrong, you got it wrong. You got it right, you got it right.
That is their recommendation.
Okay.
We've already talked today, so.
Yeah. It is a poorly written test question. I know I've written a lot of tests. That's a bad. But okay, so you're recommending
A, B, or D as correct answers.
May I add on that?
Yes.
So for the sergeants, I don't know if there's a different order on the lieutenants, hadn't pulled that up yet, but for the sergeants, if D cannot be a right answer if we're saying that A and B. So, I mean, this is one of those cases where you touched on, Muncie, with the fact that this is a right answer and then another close right answer, right? This, whether or not y'all's decision and respect, whatever it is unintentionally or recklessly the same thing, which is recklessly causes bodily injury would fit that. That's going to be the semantics on words and whether y'all decide. But I would not think that D is an appropriate answer because none of the above are correct is not a correct statement. It's not right.
Yeah, I was thinking, because to me, again, I kind of, to me, D, none of them are correct. There's definitely one that is correct. Definitely. Now, if that was misworded or something, then maybe, but yeah, I wouldn't. A, B, I can see where there's some consternation over that. Again, strictly as a test administrator, I would say unintentionally is the key that threw everybody off, and you need to know the difference between unintentionally and intentionally. That's my strict, interpretation. But taking into consideration the training and the background and the word usage, we need to think about this a little bit.
So, my input is that when you say none of the above are correct, then you're contradicting A and B. So, when we take these tests, especially the state tests, we know that we have to pick the best possible answers because a lot of times we got to decipher those. And we already know that intentionally knowingly threaten or place another in fear of imminent bodily injury or death is a correct answer. So, to me, I'll say it's either A or B, and that's just my opinion.
Okay.
Nominate for A and B to be correct answers?
A or B?
A or B?
Okay. Okay. Again, my personal opinion is I would just leave it as it is. But obviously there's three people here, so we'll look at, so we have the motion would be to accept both A and B.
I'll make a motion, yes, to accept either A or B as a possible answer, even though we know B is the correct answer. But whenever they do these things, I get it. I've been there. That's just my recommendation.
Okay. So we have a motion, we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. But motion carries 2-1. So we will question 50, A or B would be considered a correct response.
The next question being challenged is question 78. Coming from SAPD Policy Manual, CID investigators must be called by the patrol supervisor regarding the death of a child younger than blank years of age. A is 3, B is 6, C is 10, and D is 16. The exam says B, 6 is the correct answer. Appellants say no correct answer. We have the challenges listed there. The consultant response says we respectfully disagree with the appellant. A section of SAPD policy states that an exception to this would be deaths on which an attending physician will be signing the death certificate and a justice of the peace will not be needed, such as in hospitals. The death of a child younger than 6 years of age would, however, null this rule and require CID investigators to be called out on scene. Therefore, the question is valid and the only correct answer is choice B.
Everybody got this wrong.
Yes.
Everyone got this wrong.
Nobody got this question right.
Yeah. That's pretty scary. Was it one? Any unintended, where is that? Oh, it says, okay, any unintended death requires a call out to CID investigators. And when I looked through the criteria, I didn't see anything that said anything about any unintended death. So maybe I missed it in there. I went through it. I didn't see what I have in front of me here anyhow. To me, it makes sense, an unintended death. But I didn't see anything here in the study material That addresses that unintended death. And of
There's
course-
2 pages of the material that I presented. So I highlighted the first part of it,
Yes.
and then the second page has section 4.
The death of a child younger than 6 years of age.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
I believe right above that, there's going to be a piece in there that says something about the unintended death.
I didn't see it.
Is there any appellant, or anybody that has any feedback?
The question one more time, just so I'm back to where, I'm not the appellate on this, but I'll speak to it at least first. I'm sure some others have some.
.07, CID investigators must be called by the patrol supervisor regarding the death of a child younger than blank years of age. Options are 3, 6, 10, or 16.
Okay, so the thought behind the question, it's not a bad question, it's word for word in policy, we've looked that up. I think the question that was raised was that it doesn't matter the age of a child, you're required to call CID out for any unattended death. So if they're not in a hospital or attended by a physician in a hospice manner, you have to call the CID detective out. So that's why it was challenged. I don't want to say it's a bad policy, but it's not being followed to the letter of the policy is what I'm thinking. That's my opinion. Again, 9 years. I would say it's a bad question, but again, it is word for word in the policy. It's just not common practice, so.
Thank you.
I would just like to echo what he said. It's very telling that every person missed it, because that is not a common practice. I was a detective for a number of years. I've asked around preceding this, getting ready for it, and I can't find anyone who knows of a specific time that CID did not respond to a child death. And I think if you ask yourself, if you had a 16-year-old child, would you want detectives looking into it? I think you probably would. I think most people would. So it's a very common sense thing. It's something we do in our profession every day. And there is policy in regards to following orders that are given, lawful orders. This is done with permission through supervisors before we call CID. I don't just pick up the phone and call a detective and say, hey, can you come help me out? I go through a supervisor up the chain, and they make those recommendations or allowances. So this is happening normally. Again, just telling that everyone missed it. Thank you.
And I will add to that in regards to the fact that we're going out to investigate regardless of that age. That's not something, why it's not sticking in anyone's mind and why they got it wrong is because we all know we're going to go whether or not that's, if a 16-year-old dies, that's a weird thing. CID's coming. That is although it not be a wrong answer, that is why the answers were so broad, because it's not something that is a metric that they're looking at.
And I think the logic behind it is if an attending physician is signing that death certificate, if they're under 6, CID needs to be called, regardless. That's how, I think the logic behind that question.
Sure.
And that's why policy says that. I didn't write the policy, he didn't write that policy, so.
And we're currently working through policy review.
Well, I was about to say, it seems like it's something that's, and we've had the same way too, the book says blah, blah, blah. In reality, here's how we deal with it. I mean, sometimes common sense overrules what's written down on a piece of paper. And you say, well, obviously we're gonna do this. I don't care what the regulation says. If I have a child, I'm gonna call. So that's why I was looking at this, but.
Which is also what, under civil service, one of the options that you have is what general practice is, regardless of what is written. So take that for consideration.
You have any issues with this, or? Oh.
My name's Kelly LaJoy. I'm actually the sergeant over child crimes right now, so this would directly be over us. The problem is actually the question. The question says a supervisor will call CID. In the 17 plus years I've been doing this, we got away from the supervisor calling CID a long time ago. It's actually the officer on scene who calls for CID. So that's probably where a lot of the confusion was, because the supervisor rarely calls the detective directly. It's usually an officer. And yes, as far as any type of kiddo death, we're going to get called regardless. There's been one incident recently where an infant death occurred in Shannon and actually at Shannon, and we did not get called. Well, I'm sorry, we did get called immediately, and then we got corrected on that, because the way it's written is either a JP or a medical examiner will get called if it's a medically attended death of a child. So we actually did get called first, and we're corrected on it. So there are other stipulations, but as far as what we would normally do in the normal course of conduct that we do, it does not fall in line with our policy. We don't have a supervisor that calls CID. So I don't know if that helps, but.
Some things from me too. So this is a department policy where this question comes from, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And that is also, the normal practice is the officers making that phone call.
Right.
That is.
Well, it makes sense to me. Why would I add another layer in to get something done? Okay.
And that will be something that we're looking at on policy review.
Well, yeah, Thoughts, questions, concerns?
Yeah, there's no correct answer. Because, I mean, we have the same practice when I worked at other agency where we would call CID out, so, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, makes sense to me, but, okay. Well, the consultant recommendation is the questions reality requires no action. If we're 0 for 13, something's wrong somewhere. I've given enough tests in the past where everybody misses a question. Something's wrong, something's wrong. So. That was only on, it's only on the sergeant's exam, so, okay. So I'm inclined to say we pull that question out, personally.
Okay.
Agree.
So.
Okay.
I nominate to throw the question out.
Okay, have a nomination for the question in a second.
I got a second.
Okay, have a nomination's been seconded to throw that question out. Any further discussion or input? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all opposed, same sign. Carried, question is out.
Okay, the last question on the sergeant exam that is contested is question 100. Comes from the San Angelo Code of Ordinances, Chapter 8, Section 8.12.002. It shall be unlawful for any person to procure or perform an abortion of any type at blank in the city of San Angelo, Texas. A is any stage of pregnancy, B, second trimester of pregnancy, C, third trimester of pregnancy, and D, all of the above are correct. The key says answer D, all of the above are correct. It's being challenged that both A and D should be correct. The test writer's response states, we agree with the appellants. In our view, both answer choices A and D are functionally equivalent and could reasonably be interpreted as representing the same response. Of the 13 tested, 6 got it incorrect, 7 got it correct. Of the 6 that got it incorrect, 5 of them answered A. Only 1 answered something other than A or D.
Probably D. Probably D. Okay. Because at any stage of pregnancy, that includes second trimester, third trimester, so I can see where, A and D would be, it's the same thing, just saying it a different way, yeah.
And I believe A is verbatim in the order.
Yes, A is verbatim, yes, sir, at any stage of pregnancy. As an analyst, I'm looking at this and say, well, of course, any stage is also second and third. And right, I'm thinking it's a trick question. That's why I read it. It is a trick question. Yeah, I'd be upset too on this one. I said, there's 2 good answers on this one. Yeah. Discussion, questions?
I see how it's D and I see how it's A. However, like D is all the above, so
Well, at any stage of pregnancy, that includes first trimester, second, third, whatever. So D is going to be appropriate, yeah, all the above. It is also any stage. So.
it's also A.
It could be, yeah, it could be B, C, all these answers, you can argue that all these answers are correct. We're going for the most correct response. I'd either go for A, I would say A, but I can see where D would jump in and say, okay, that's the same thing as A, just worded different.
I think just one thing to point out is that we're testing their knowledge base of what the topic is. And if they selected A, they know the topic. Now, did they complete their thought and look at the total answer? You could argue that back and forth, but if we're measuring knowledge growth and development, A would be correct because it's verbatim out of the code. I don't know who the appellant is on that. that's my my assessment that D and A would have a valid answer key.
Yeah,
I'll go with that. Let's say accept A and D.
yeah, if I'm sure in A and I see D, I'm thinking, wait a minute, that's basically the same thing there, so. Recommendation is to award a point to those who answered either A or D.
I second that.
So, okay, you have any?
Oh, no, no.
Good? Or-
This kind of reminded me of the last question we just dealt with, so, yeah, that's how it's worded.
Okay, so do we have a motion to recommend awarding a point to those A and D?
I second it.
Okay, we have a motion. Have a second?
Yes, got a second.
Okay, a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. Done. I believe that concludes the sergeant's exam.
Okay.
Is good? Everybody need a break? Everybody doing all right?
No, good. Press.
Okay. So on the lieutenant exam, we had 3 questions, 33, 34, and 80. 34, we handled in the,
Well, I've listed line item C to consider the lieutenant appeal of the entire exam or questions 33, 34,
Right, okay.
80. I figure if we're going to throw the entire exam, there's no reason to go into the
okay, yeah,
individual
we'll look at that first.
questions.
Yeah, okay, good.
In the second paper-clipped packet that I have prepared for you guys, that's going to have the 2 sergeant appeals for
Right.
the lieutenant exam for the entire exam. And provided in the packet, the backup and documentation
Right.
of how that came to be. The issue at hand is that the last 20 questions, questions 81 through 100 on the lieutenant exam came from a source material not listed. So in addition to those 33, 34, and 80, we need to decide what are we doing about those 20 questions.
Right.
You've got the appeals. I won't read through the entire appeals. You've got those. I haven't been reading those. The test writers have thrown out a couple of options, and even as late as yesterday evening, I was on the phone with them trying to get clarity on what they're recommending. They have initially, when this was determined to be those 20 questions out of the source material, outside of the source material, they did offer to do a 20-question replacement exam. So take the 20 questions that were from outside the source material and replace them with a 20-question exam stemming from the resources or the source material that was not presented. We've never done that before. That is an option. They have recommended, as of yesterday, to give everyone credit for those 20 questions. It's another
So I want to ask the
option.
implications. So if we throw out the 20 questions, what is that? What's the implications of that? And what's the implications if we give them credit for those 20 questions?
If we gave everyone credit for questions 81 through 100, that would add 2 sergeants onto that lieutenant list that were not currently on the list, if we gave credit for everyone. If we throw the 20 questions out, there would be no movement on the list. We would go and factor in an 80-question exam, or depending on if any of these other questions are thrown, we would recalculate the grades just based on the 20 questions being thrown out and grading on an 80-question exam. There wouldn't be any change on the list. There wouldn't be any movement. The biggest impact to any of the 6 testers was a 2-point increase, but that wouldn't have put them on the list. I think the impact was minimal of throwing out the 20 questions if we're strictly going on grades. I know in the appeals, it's more than just the grade and throwing those out.
Yeah.
They're asking for consideration about the material that was not presented on the exam. That was on the source material, the reading list.
Well, as far as 20 questions go, to me, give credit for those 20 questions, I'm not in favor of that personally, but I don't think that's the right thing to do. The other issues, there were 7 sources and only 3 were used, right, on the test?
4.
I'm sorry, 4.
3
Only
were not.
3 were not used. So, and again, the test, when I'm writing a test, we have our learning objectives, our training objectives, call it what you will. And some have more weight than others. Obviously, some are more important than others, some are more detailed. So I might have a 100-question test with 5 training objectives. I might have one training objective with 15 questions, another training objective with 20, another with 3, 4, 5, 7, whatever, to fill that gap. The impression I'm looking at here, where the conclusion was consequently 42 to 50 the questions were not sorted out. That's by looking at, if you have 7 objectives, 100-question test, that's approximately 14 apiece. And one of the things about test writers, that's what we tell it, if there's 5 objectives on a 10-question test, that doesn't mean there's 2 questions in every objective. And some people make that, okay. I've had people come up, well, there's only 5 A's. I gotta have a couple more A's. There's not enough A's on here. And that's the wrong way to think about a test. So I just want to clear the air on that right away. Just because all objectives weren't covered doesn't mean that those questions that were on there weren't valid questions based on the objectives that were covered. Okay? So I feel better now. Okay. Certainly, ma'am, certainly. Oh, yeah.
Again, Kelly So this is the 6th test that I've taken with our department in my time at the department. The only time we've ever had government code on a test, there were 27 questions from government code specifically. So I can tell you government code was one of the ones that was taken off that test. It was not used at all. So with all the tests that I have taken, you get to an idea of how many tests are going to be, or how many questions are going to be on each test. So there's some that you weight more importantly than others. So for me, previously taking it with government code, I knew there were 27 on a previous test, so I focused in on government code. Good to Great, it's one of the books that was left off. If you talk to our chief for any number of time, any minutes, and you've read that book, you know for him that book would weigh very heavily. So of course, the way that I would think it's a book that I know he really looks at, so I put a lot of my focus in that book, and of course it was not on the test. So were the test questions on there good? Yes. However, when I'm looking at it and I'm in the middle of a test and I get to a section and I'm like, this is nothing that we studied this go around. In fact, the only reason some of us did good on those 20 questions is because it was a book from the last test, the time we took lieutenant's test. So, statistically, when I looked at it after the fact, I'm like, there's a pretty good chunk of material that several of us focused in on because it is normally heavily weighted on the test and it's not there. So that was my argument. The integrity of the test is not great when you've left off 3 fairly large sources of material that we studied. Now, I don't not want to take away from these 3 gentlemen that passed it either. I mean, I know they clearly studied just the right amount to get to where they were at. But then you have 3 of us, it's half and half, 3 of us that focused in on other areas that we've taken these tests previously, we know the importance of them, and they were left off altogether. So that's my argument.
If we did allow for a 20-question test, would that be fair?
I can tell you, according to my legal guidance, it's not legal within civil service to put a 20-question test. It would actually have to be another test that's given, you have to do a 30-day notice and all that. I don't know that that's the one to argue here, but I don't think that's the appropriate answer, in my opinion.
Question makeup test, basically.
Right,
Talking
right.
about there, yeah, okay.
And that's what the consultant offered to do,
Right,
was to
right.
create another,
Right.
We wouldn't have to do the 90-day source material posting, it's the same source material, but we would give the 30-day notice for any additional, whether it's a complete new test or a 20-question replacement test.
And that 20-question replacement test, that actually goes added to the score that we currently have, correct? It's
Well,
not like a,
We would remove the 20 questions and then use these 20 questions. So we would keep the 80 that was good and then add the 20 new ones and calculate. It would just be a swap. Take those 20 out, add these 20 in.
And recalculate with those new 20 questions, right, yeah.
that seems like a lot on you guys to do that. Sorry, that's just me talking out loud. I don't know. Okay. My thoughts is I'm inclined to throw out those questions and to make sure that this doesn't happen again. Is that in the realm of possibility, you think?
well, that's another part of the argument. Usually, if you look at civil service, somebody should be looking at that test when it comes in to make sure that everything on that test is within the guidelines and, something that should be testable. I can tell you, you read local government code and there is so much fire department related stuff in there as well.
Yeah.
Well, according to what is written, then I need to know that because it could possibly be on the test. Is it something I would need to know as a lieutenant in the police department? I don't need to know fire department's guidelines. That's just my personal opinion. But could it be on the test? If it's not looked at, then yeah, that question could absolutely be another one that's on the test that it's not necessarily in my purview.
I'm sure the fire department has just the opposite of it. I don't need to know what the police department's doing all the
Yes,
time when
sir.
I'm on the fire scene. So I see where you're coming from,
And
yeah.
I'm not the only one that has this argument. There's some others that would like to come up here and say their part as well. I just wanted to get out there that I'm absolutely the one that I did the math on it. When you look at it, if you do equally, it would be roughly 14 questions per section.
Right,
But
right.
again, like I said, government code last time, there were 27 questions. So it was a very heavy hit area. So, but that's all I have.
Oh, no, thank you. So, I don't, now, in my old world, when there's 5 training objectives, or say 7 training objectives here, that's gonna be on the test, they will all be addressed on the test. I don't get to pick the 4 or the 5 that I think are most important. If it's a training objective, it's a requirement, if you know that, I'm gonna have test questions on it. Okay? And based on the level of that question, if it's a complex question, if it's an easy yes or no question, that's how many questions I'm gonna have for that objective. But every objective must be covered. Now, in the past, I don't know, has this come up before where a test has been given and not all the sources have been tested? Is that a common practice, or is it normally, if source material I need to know to be this next grade, that's gonna be tested to some degree on the test?
I don't recall there ever being a test that had source materials presented on the reading list that was not used.
Yeah, okay.
And I think the idea moving forward too is that we do exactly what Sergeant LaJoy was talking about, is having a more succinct area, that making sure that we're getting there. There's a failure on the company side there. Why we don't look at the thought process of why there's no review of the test prior to, and I think we're looking at some options to change that, but is because we want the integrity of the test, to make sure no one has the ability to do that, so.
Certainly.
Hello, just a quick comment. Veronica Sanchez, HR Director. I want to make sure everybody on the commission, obviously the administration and the audience understand that the integrity of these tests are very important to us. We go through a pretty rigorous process with test writers to make sure that there are measures in place. I think we all agree that that was not the case for this test. And so moving forward and how we determine if we utilize the same test writer will be determined based on conversations we have with both them internally. So, but it is important so that we can not have, obviously, 20 questions that need to be discussed based on what should have been in there. So, thank you.
No, thank you, ma'am. Yeah, this is one of my guys wrote this test. I'd have to either fire him or punch him in the throat or something.
You can see.
Yeah, this is not good.
No. So our options are, give them, sorry, yeah. Yes, sir.
Oh. Thought you were gonna bring all them books up there, so we're in for a long conversation.
I know y'all have my appeal already, but I would like to read it aloud. To whom it may concern, my name is Sergeant Antoine Callum. I currently serve as a sergeant in the Criminal Investigations Division of the San Angelo Police Department. I'm submitting an appeal in accordance with Chapter 143 of the Local Government Code, Civil Service Rules and Regulations, specifically Section 46, promotions, filling vacancies, contents, methods, and written examinations, and appeal of promotional examination. On June 26, I participated in the written portion of the promotional examination administered by the City of San Angelo for the rank of lieutenant. I have been with the San Angelo Department for about 17 years. This is my first instance of an issue of this magnitude occurring regarding a promotional exam. During the test, I discovered that the last 20 questions were derived from a book not listed in the source material. Additionally, 3 source material items on the promotional exam posting were entirely omitted from the exam. Of the 7 items on the source material listed, only 4 were actually tested. With 7 of the source materials listed, this should equate approximately to 14 questions per source material, allowing for some discretion by the test maker. Consequently, 42 to 50 questions were not sourced. It also appears that many of the questions on the most recent lieutenant's exam were sourced from the last lieutenant's exam of June 24, 2024. These questions include but are not limited to those taken from the aforementioned text as listed as source material from the June 24th test of 2024. This gives a clear advantage to promotional candidates who took that test. However, I did not. Accountability is fundamental. Principal in law enforcement administering substandard promotional exam to officers who have held to high standards of accountability undermines the integrity of the promotional process and must be addressed. A fair resolution for the participants would be a subsequent evaluation or the invalidation of the current assessment. For these reasons outlined above, I'm filing this appeal and grievance with the city, respectfully. I would also like to point out, under the Local Government Code, 143.032, it says, the examination questions must be taken from the sources posted as prescribed by Section 143.029, subsection A. Firefighters or police officers may suggest the source materials for the examination. The examination questions must be prepared and composed so that the grading of the examination can be promptly completed after the examination is over. The director is responsible for the participation and security of each promotional examination. The fairness and competitive promotional examination is the responsibility of the commission. The director and each municipal employee involved in the preparation or administration of the test. The way this test was written, it was basically 20 question clusters. We would discuss the omitted material, which was substantial, but then when you throw in a book that I never got a chance to read, and I believe I scored a 67 initially, and I dropped down to a 65 after recalculations without sounding arrogant. I think had stuff that I was told to study been on the test, I may have got into my 70s and got my seniority points. And I want to say every last one of these guys will make outstanding lieutenants. And for me, this is more about getting the process right, not I want to be the lieutenant over this guy. But I just think it needs to be rectified. The options given to Ms. Russell that were related to myself and Ms. LaJoy, the 20-question test, we were told Kelly would have to get 0 wrong to even qualify, and I could only miss 3 out of 20 out of a hodgepodge of whatever they put on that 20 questions. I don't think that's fair. But I leave it to the board. Whatever decision is made, I respect it. But first and foremost, this can't happen again for the integrity of the test moving forward for future generations. I see my time. Yes, sir.
Something off when you were at the end of the test and you're like, I don't remember this content?
Before I got to the end, I believe Ms. Russell told me that you're going to find a bunch of questions that you weren't sourced. With that being said, and once again, no knock to the guys that did score higher. I think a few of them tested before. So if they're getting tested on material that they've already read, that's kind of an advantage. But you play the game, you know, they did well. So that just is what it is. Outside of that, I really don't think this is a case where we as a city, agency, or whatever can just say, well, oops, we'll just move along and act like this didn't happen. There has to be some tangible rectification of this incident because some of us were knocking right on the door, and had we had the actual source material, I tend to believe I would have passed that exam. So, that's all.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Colin mentioned Sergeant LaJoy informed me when she got to those questions that they were out of source. So I did notify all of the rest of the sergeants that were testing that day to give them a heads up so they knew what to expect at the end.
Hello again, I'm Sergeant Medley, and this is tough to get up here and talk about because we're talking about everyone's careers here. And you have some people that didn't pass and what could have happened, and then you have some people that did pass. And for that, I almost feel guilty about getting up here and talking about some of these points. But I am going to do that today. Do I think that the 20 questions should be allowed on the test? Absolutely not. I don't think they should be a part of it. Whenever Ms. Russell showed us the scores, I don't think that the grades changed very significant. I think she has a copy of those. Y'all may have a copy of those as well. And if you don't, I think maybe they should be able to look at that. To the fact of, hey, I didn't have the source material. So I studied the book, Good to Great, which was not on there for a great majority of the time because that's a material that I haven't learned throughout my career. The other things that were on there, we've had a lot of time in our career to know. The penal code, you should know a lot of the penal code. You're not going to know everything. It's a very big book. Our policy, those are things you should know. In saying all those things, though, I do understand their point of view on, hey, there's 20 questions here. Maybe I could have passed. And I don't want to take anything away from these people. But at the same time, it didn't change our scores all that much. And if you were to say, let's invalidate the test, I don't know that it's fair to the people that passed it. If we take another test, yes, we all have the same, it's all a chance again. We may not pass that next test. So then again, they're not getting the opportunity here. We may not get the opportunity on the next one. This process, there was a big mix-up on it, and there is a problem, and it does need to be addressed. I agree with that. How to solve it, I'm glad I'm not you here today having to try to figure that out. So I don't envy you in your position. But I do agree, too, that the 20 questions do not need to be on the exam.
I'm Sergeant Joshua Schultz with PD. Speaking on what Medley had talked about, I agree those 20 questions should be out. As soon as I got to them, too, I went up to Christine and was like, you know, what is this? This isn't what we read. To say that the things that are on there from before that we had a chance to study, penal code policy, those things are always on our test. I think it shows to the ability of the testers as well that if we remove those 20 questions, the biggest change in the score is about 2 points. I think that shows kind of a knowledge base for each individual to show that regardless of these 20 questions that should not be on the test, the rest of the material tested, we stayed pretty consistent with our score through those sections. And those are things that we normally would be tested on regardless. So I think the material that we did get tested on is relevant. I don't think there was any real advantage or anything because of the policy penal code that we always get tested on. But I do agree that 20 questions need to be removed from the test. I don't think they're relevant to it. That's just my opinion.
Giving points to everybody for those 20 questions would be essentially removing them, or would be thrown out?
No, sir, I don't believe so. I believe they should be removed from the test completely. Like, it should be graded on an 80-question test. To give 20 points to everybody seems unrealistic because we shouldn't have any expectation of knowing that information or being awarded points for it. I think it's more consistent to say we were tested on these 80 questions that are relevant to our job or relevant to the material provided to us, and go off of that score. Thank you.
Sergeant Medley again. One other thing I'd like to add is the local government code does not set a specific amount of questions for an exam, and it doesn't say that you have to test everything that is presented to you. So there's 7 source materials. Local government code doesn't say you have to test on those 7 sources. I have, in a previous exam, a sergeant's exam, put a lot of emphasis on what is now called Texas Police Procedures, was called something different then. It was 70, or I didn't put emphasis on it because it was 70 pages out of 1,500 pages of material so to study. I didn't think that would be a big issue. 70 pages, how many questions could be on there? There was a lot of questions on that exam. So you never know what a test writer is going to do. And local government code doesn't require a certain amount of questions that I have seen in the local government code. Now, I only studied it during this time, but I didn't see a number of questions or how many sources you have to test from.
I agree with Sergeant Medley that it doesn't say you have to have a certain amount of questions, but it does say all questions have to come from the source material. So if we have an entire book, which took up 20 questions, I'm not saying give anybody anything, but make it make sense. They're all going to promote if we go with the list we have now, that's fine. Say hypothetically, you gave everybody 20 points. They would only affect 2 of us who probably still would not promote. I don't really care either way. I just want to have something on paper that says, moving forward, these are the checks and balances that are in place to make sure these things are done right. Because I spent a lot of times, like everybody else did, reading the thickest book that I never got tested on. The local government code, foreign language to most of us at the patrol level, sergeant, spent a lot of time on that, didn't get tested on it. And it's kind of like we're violating local government code whilst trying to justify our test at the same time. So it kind of doesn't make sense.
And on that, I want to speak to this, is that this process is, I'm super proud of what I'm seeing today from the men and women of the San Angelo Police Department and how they represented themselves. I'm impressed with that. But the key point that in local rules, like that y'all have the authority over, we'd like to see some things to make sure that we put some things in place to mitigate this in the future. And there's several things that we can look at. Nobody wants this to happen again, because absolutely for both sides of this coin, there's some major stressors. But I just want to say that it's not lost on anybody at this the city side or our side, if you will, for the police department admin to say, we want to make sure that we have a solution and a proper testing range so that they know coming into, hey, we don't care about the fire department side and there's no need to learn things you don't need to learn. That we're going to try to nail that down to have a better product.
That makes sense. And again, my history with writing tests and all that, if it's going to be a study source or something you need to know, you're going to be tested on it. I'm not going to do half of them or whatever. So that's always something that needs to be addressed. The review process, I'm not sure, somebody mentioned, to have it reviewed before it gets out to make sure the test is good to go. In my old world, we had SMEs, subject matter experts, who were they weren't taking the test, they weren't in that process. So those are the guys I call, okay, look at these tests, fact check me, make sure I'm doing this right, make sure I don't do something, I left something out or something is obviously wrong. And it was a very excruciating process we went through in the military for these tests, both promotion tests, Air Force wide, and in the schoolhouses for specific courses. A very intense process. It goes a lot of checks and balances. And I don't know if that exists here at this level yet, but if not, maybe it should. So.
I can speak to that. So that's what we pay the test writer to do. There is some oversight that the director would have, in this case, Christine. And she can check it to a certain extent and obviously have conversations with the test writer to say, okay, explain to me how many questions are there from this source material or whatever, which we can definitely improve upon. Our hesitancy would be involving anybody aside from the civil service director so that in her position, she can stay true to making sure that nobody has access to those questions in that test. So it truly would just be on that position and maybe the city attorney's office to make sure that they're handling that. Again, the integrity is important, and that's something that we will definitely consider, and the checks and balances that the test writer has in place for us to fall back on when I guess determining how to move forward with test writers. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, man.
Barry White again. So the local government code does say that the test, all the questions from the test need to come from the study materials. I agree with that. And I agree that 20 of those test questions on the lieutenant's test did not come from that material. So I'm all for throwing those out. The option of going with the other 20, I hope they sent you the test, because we can go take that now. We've already had the notification and all that, and that would be a part of this test. That would be great. I think we don't really need to spend any more time on studying and have extra time. If we need to take that test today, we should do that. As far as the 80 that we did, that we have already tested over, those were covered by the study material. And so, real quick, I don't want to give points to and everybody having points for those 20 that were not covered. That kind of goes back to the sergeant's test. Why give the 3 points for the 3 questions that you threw out? So don't do that here either. But on that note, you've reduced the number of the sergeant's questions test to 97 versus 100. We could do the same thing down to 80 for the lieutenant's test. For that matter, we could go up to 150. There's no standard number, correct, on the number of questions for the promotion exam. So whether it's 80 or 100 or 150, that's irrelevant as well. All 80 questions were covered. If you throw out the 20, all 80 remaining questions were covered by the study material. The 20 questions that were not covered by the study material, I think if those had been the first, 1 through 20 on the test, that would have messed everybody up. They were the last, and so they were the last 20. And I've received notice, and I was on about question 60. Hey, you're going to come across some things that is not covered by the study material. So now I'm thinking about that, going through the rest of the test up to 80. I think, not that I can make a motion here, but I think we should stick with the 80. If we have the option to do the added 20, let's do that. Those options are, I'm good with that. Either way, throwing out the entire test. I think the test is a valid test, and it's over information that was covered by the study materials. There's a lot of things that a lieutenant needs to know that aren't covered by study materials. So, you know, studying things that end up not being on the test, I get it. That makes it a poor test. But we've looked at some poor questions today and have allowed multiple answers, even on one that I got wrong, that I agree with the correct answer. And I talked about that. I agree with the correct answer, but we still took more than one correct answer. Here, why throw out the entire test? But I do agree with, I don't ever want to see this thing happen again. That's all I got.
Just for some context, we took a 100-question test, as we all know, and between 490 and 500 pages of source material weren't on it. And then you throw in the book that wasn't added. So I don't see how we can call it a valid test. We're either going to have to address the 20 points. I don't need 20 points to pass this test, nor does Kelly. So just for context, that's an enormous amount of material just to ignore. And I think we've all been supervisors for almost a decade now, most of us. We all know penal code, we all know CCP, we all know our policy, city ordinance. So it's clear that the books, the academic books, were the weak point for most of us, in my opinion. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I have no dog in this fight, but I do want it kind of brought up, the fact that if the test is thrown out, we lose 3 months of eligibility for promotion, waiting on the 30-day notice, the new test, the new process of challenging those 20 questions. So the sergeants that took the test and passed are now in a holding pattern for an additional 3 months. I just want that on the record. I don't think the test should be thrown out. 80 questions is 80 questions. But I do want that noted, that our time won't get extended because our list starts from the test date for our eligibility for the 1 year. So.
And that would affect all sergeants, right?
Whoever made the list, the eligibility list. So whoever's eligible, we're waiting, because we can't promote until lieutenants promote. And if the test if it's thrown out, then we have to do the announcements. And then, so our date started from our test date in June. We have 1 year from that date to promote. We would be waiting for 3 months for them, or well, we're already a month into it, so another 2 months probably. So we lose 3 months of our eligibility. So I just wanted that to be considered as well, please. Thank you.
Because we've never actually had this issue before, I know that there is currently an assessment center that is set up and ready to go for sergeants and lieutenants, whoever may be going forward. So I don't know, again, we've never had it, but they could still essentially run that assessment center for sergeants. So, I mean, it's still there, it's still set up, it hasn't been canceled or anything like that, am I correct? It's still there. So there's not an open sergeant spot right now. We know there will be eventually. So it doesn't necessarily push them back 3 months if they continue through with the process. Their list would be finalized and good to go. But I think that, again, depend on how it ends up, everything else ends up. So, thank you.
Answer that question for me. If our test is certified from June 27th, when does our eligibility run out?
It's for a year, but.
From June 27th?
Yeah, but I mean, if we have to post, another 30-day test or anything like that, that's not changing the spots that are open.
It's not changing ours, but if there's a lieutenant's position that's open now and they were to promote, if they were to promote now, that would open a sergeant's position. You see what I mean?
Right.
But if they push it 2 more months, my question is, we've lost 3 months of eligibility because we're waiting for the lieutenants to get certified to get promoted. So I have a 3 months where I'm eligible to promote with no openings, but if their test was certified today, they could start promoting after the assessment center, correct?
That's true, but I think if there's a lieutenant opening that we're having to wait on, it's going to be whether it's open right now for you to move in because there's no delay on the lieutenant's exam, or we have to wait until we can go this other route. It's still the one position.
Right, but they can't promote until their test is certified.
They can't promote, but that's not hurting your eligibility. You still have that full year.
From their test or our test?
Each test. So everybody has a year from the actual test date. So it's going to be the same for both of y'all.
Unless theirs is thrown out.
No, it's going to go from the date that you tested,
So their
regardless of
promotion
something.
eligibility will be from June 27th, just like ours, even if they're retest.
Right. The lists are valid for 1 year from the test date.
He's saying if the lieutenant test, if it's tossed, and we have a lieutenant test in 35 days, that lieutenant is eligible.
Lieutenant test would then, I guess, since it's not completed until there's either an additional test or an additional 20 questions. But the sergeants, you're being held up until a lieutenant can be promoted, but you're not losing eligibility. If there's a spot for a lieutenant that we're having to wait on to get the situation rectified, you're not being hurt. It's still there, and we're going to have that filled before your eligibility would run out from the original test date of June 27th. Am I getting that
I
right?
still think I'm losing eligibility.
Lieutenant has to promote before sergeant can promote, right? Like
Right.
You're saying that that's not, right now, that's not gonna happen. If it's thrown, you know, lieutenants.
Right.
Yeah, I'm tracking what you're saying.
Well, so, yeah, that's the clarification is if a lieutenant were to retire in June of next year, you'd have to have another sergeant's exam, even though we tested in June, because their list is good until August or whenever it gets finalized, and the sergeant's runs out in June. That's what I'm talking about, the eligibility. Right now, we ran them together, so those lists would expire together. If lieutenant's list or test is not finalized until, let's say, August 31st, mine runs out June 27th, if for some reason I don't promote, but a lieutenant retires between June 27th and August 31st, I've lost that eligibility, the promotion eligibility, because our list was certified 3 months before theirs, even though we tested the same day.
I don't think the two positions, we run them different dates all the time. It so happens last year and this year.
But this one was not run different dates. So when I took this test, I was under the impression that lieutenants would be promoted and there'd be sergeant openings, because we have to have lieutenants promote to open sergeant positions. We can't have a sergeant position open without a lieutenant promoting or a lieutenant retiring.
Right.
And that's why I'm saying that the eligibility is there. We ran it, and the one I took, and the one I passed, and the one I studied for, because everybody's talking about studying. I studied 1,500 pages. It sucked. But I went under that with the impression of lieutenants would promote to open the sergeant positions that I was trying to get. And now I lose 3 months of eligibility based on my test being certified today, and theirs being certified, theirs being redone in August. So there's that time frame.
There's a time frame difference, but you're not losing eligibility. If this is all, your test and another test, I understand, you can't move up unless a lieutenant is promoted. But if this delay of a month or so is only affecting us right now, not close to June of next year. So we've got an opening now. Once we get it figured out, then everybody will move accordingly. That's not going to mess you up for June of next year. Any delay that we're having right now would only affect if there's positions available right now and people moving into them. But it's not going to affect you back next year in June. We do the test on different days all the time, just depending on need. We don't usually have as many lieutenants test. Lately we have. Well, the last 2 years we have. But that it shouldn't matter anything in June, whether the lieutenant's test gets posted a little bit later. They'll have a longer eligibility, because we're redoing the test, but it's not going to affect you. Yours would be ending on June 27th of next year, regardless whether theirs is thrown out or not. Their extension isn't going to affect anybody on the sergeant's list from being promoted. It's just delaying it right now until we can get it
I
fixed.
think there's just a misunderstanding there, because it would, if a lieutenant were to retire, because we don't know when lieutenants are gonna retire. If they would retire in June of next year, July of next year, the sergeants that are on this eligibility list, even though we tested at the same time, we're not eligible, we'd have to retest.
But if the test is not thrown out and we go with the same test date for both
Right, then they're
sergeants
the
and
same
lieutenants,
dates.
and a lieutenant retires in
Right.
July, it would be the same thing. You would have to retest anyways.
I understand that, but I took the test knowing that there was a lieutenant test at the same time. I'm just saying what I did for this test. I'm not talking about the previous test, because I chose not to promote before. So I haven't taken a test before because that was my decision. But I took this test knowing there was a lieutenant's test at the same time, because then there's guaranteed openings usually, because they're projecting the future and can see when people are retiring.
If I may, I think the big thing that you're trying to drive home is that there's a cause and effect, right? And I think that that's going to be ultimately in y'all's wheelhouse, is that it's not going to be an easy decision. The cause and effect we'll have from sergeants to anywhere else, but I think that is the key thing to take home, is that take all this under consideration and understand that the cause and effect is very real. And I hate that this happened to everybody that's been affected. This is a stressful time to put on them and on our HR and on y'all guys that are making the decisions. So I wanted to highlight that.
I understand, because I spent 30 years in an incredibly competitive career field, and no matter what decision we make today, somebody's gonna walk out happy, somebody's gonna walk out not so happy, you know. But to me, the integrity of the test and the testing situation, that has to be addressed no matter which way we go, and that should be key.
I just want to add, first of all, I want to commend each of you for taking this test and taking all that time away from your family as well, and even working on top of everything else you do. So definitely want to commend you guys. Being in prior administration and law enforcement, and you know, currently where I am right now, and just the experience that I have overall the last 24 years, I can understand what, you know, I try to put myself in each of your shoes. I really do. I think the outcome of this situation is we all can be in agreement that this test was probably an issue from the get-go that we weren't aware of. So, like Ms. Sanchez said, and then reading from what Ms. Russell has presented about all the email notification and things that she's done her due diligence for the most part, and maintaining the integrity of the test is very important, because we definitely don't want anything to get out and somebody else says, you know, things can happen. We understand all that, you know, people can presume things. And so the study material that you guys were tested on, you know, in consensus, and this is just my opinion, you know, now that everybody's spoken, I want to just kind of address the board as well, is that the 80 question is relevant to what the source material that they were studied. Yes, there are certain things we can presume that everything should be covered on those tests, and unfortunately it wasn't in this case. But those 80 questions are valid. And throwing out the whole test, I just believe that it wouldn't do justice to everybody. So I really feel that, you know, I would want to make a motion, if that's okay, to make an 80 test question, and throw out the 20 questions that did not have study material. That's my motion.
So before he makes that motion, I want to add, in addition to that, I also want to make you whole as well, because you spent the time to study all that course content. So my other side is I'm inclined to give you the 20 points versus throwing it out. So it's a 100-question test, and you get the 20 points, gimme. And does that make it whole? I don't know. And what's
Yes, I'll just address that for what it's worth. Several officers have brought up that the local government code does require that notice that lists the sources from which the examination questions will be taken. So if the sources weren't noticed, I think those 20 questions, I mean, you either have to take them out, but giving points will allow questions on the test that weren't properly noticed. So
That answer you? Okay, that suffices. I second his nomination.
Okay. Just before we do that, I see a couple options here. That's definitely one. You move those 20 questions, grade on 80. get this new 20-question test, throw it in the back and include that in the grading. Give credit for the 20, or just throw the whole test down the tubes. Those are the 4 options. And the recommendation, the motion has been made to remove those 20 questions and grade on the 80, regardless of how many objectives were covered in the test. And no matter which way we go forward, I want to make sure we follow up on this one way or the other, that something like this doesn't happen again, like you mentioned. I've been told there's a review process, or that's going to happen soon, and I think this has brought some things to light that we can definitely take care of. The process of the grading the test, how many objectives, to me, when I write a test, if I have 7 training objectives, I'm testing 7 training objectives. And maybe that's something that can be done locally to ensure this happens in the future, to make it because whenever what happens today, it's going to be treated as fair for some people, unfair for others. And I'm sorry you guys are in that, because I agree with these gentlemen here. You guys, what you do for this community is remarkable. You're very underappreciated many times, and trust me, I have some family members that have been in law enforcement, and I know what you guys do, and I appreciate it. And so it's going to be somebody had to bite the bullet on this, no matter whichever you go. But we need to also keep in mind the integrity of the test and how we go forward to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's an unfortunate situation. We need to deal with it and take care of it. Everybody's not going to walk away happy, but hopefully everybody will walk away with a sense of knowing that this is not going to happen again. And in my 30-year career, there were times I turned around and said, well, that's a bunch of, and I'll take this uniform off and I'll just go someplace else. And then you calm down a little bit. It's okay, I'm going to suck it up, and because I know what I'm capable of, and I'm going to try and recover. And I'm sure anybody in this room is in the same situation. You know what you're capable of, and I know you can recover. Okay, so we have a nomination, we have a motion to remove those 20 questions and grade the 80 that were, for lack of a better term, legitimate questions. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second? Second. Okay, so all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. So we're going to remove those 20 questions, grade the 80. And as has already been said, I wish there was a way to make everybody happy. There isn't. I do appreciate all the time and effort you ladies and gentlemen put into this. There's no way I can thank you enough, but please know that in the future, with the work for the police department here in the review process, I think this is going to be fixed. And it might be a tough bullet to swallow right now, but I think in the future it's going to even out and work out for the better of everybody. Okay.
Quick question. Out of the questions that were thrown out, not just the 20, but just general challenges, how many were there?
There's 3 questions that have been challenged, and that would be the next item.
One of the questions have already been decided to accept A and B.
But yeah.
Challenge question 34.
Right.
So the next question on the agenda is the Lieutenant question 33. Referring to Texas Penal Code Section 2802, states that a person commits the offense of arson if the person recklessly starts a fire or causes an explosion while manufacturing or attempting to manufacture a controlled substance, and the fire or explosion damages any building, habitation, or vehicle. It is an exception to the application of this subsection if A, the damage is less than total $200, B, there was no active insurance on the damaged property, C, the fire or explosion was a part of the controlled burning of open space land, and D, all of the above are correct. The examination key was answer C. The appellant says there is no correct answer. We've provided the appeal information. Test writers say they agree with the appellant. The question does not have the answer choice listed. They recommended awarding a point to any candidate that answered the question.
My head hurts. Okay.
So 2 of the 6 tested got the answer correct. 4 did not.
Right. So, any comment on this one from anybody? No. I mean, I'm open up to everybody. I have my eyes on a few people in particular, but I'm open this up to everybody, so.
So this is I'm sorry. I'm gonna go with this is a right or wrong answer. And they, what was option 4?
All of the above are correct.
Okay. None of them are correct. So, I think the question's a bad question. So why would we give points to everyone? I don't even remember where I'm at on that one, but, none of the answers are correct, so, y'all have the same paper in front of you that I do, that A1, I mean, well, none of the answers are correct, so why would we give a point, even if I got the point?
It's correct. You're saying it's not correct?
None of the answers are correct.
Because it's, I read it B on the, where it says it is an exception to application of subsection A1 that a fire or explosion was a part of the controlled burning of open space land.
Right, that's A1, not A-1. A-1 is, if you read further in the statute, A-1 is a different.
A-1, person commits an offense that the person recklessly starts a fire or causes an explosion while manufacturing or attempting, that's what the question is, right?
Right, period, so there's no exception there.
Test writers just screwed it up.
Absolutely right.
Does that follow that? It's A1 and A-1.
I see what you're saying.
I did the same thing. It's right there. It's right there.
I got you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Yep. You're right.
So I disagree with the test writer or whoever that I think they're all wrong.
Gotcha.
I think much like this whole test, there's issues, and I would agree that they're not right.
Their recommendation is give a point to any candidate to answer the question. So I don't think anybody would leave a question unanswered. I don't know. Yeah, I would think so, because, if somebody turned in and tested me on a question answer, I'd throw it right back at them and say, come back when you're done. But, okay. Any other comment on this? Gents? Yeah. Yeah, I did the same thing. I looked at it. It's right there. And I went, oh, dash. Okay. Yep.
All right.
I did the same thing. So consultant recommends a award a point to this question. Obviously, just give them credit for it because it's a bad question.
Well, again, may or may not agree, but given direction, it's not a very good question. I'd rather just throw that question out. That's just my recommendation.
Could throw the question out.
So what's the implications of giving the points versus throwing it out?
Well, probably if you give them the point, I'm sorry.
Does it impact the pass? Or?
I mean, the question's no good. I mean,
Yeah.
the answer that they're saying is right, not right. So if you get everyone the correct
Points
answer,
doesn't make sense.
the question's just no good, period.
Yeah.
And we
Shouldn't be there in theory, I guess.
Trying to be consistent where it's not a good question. It doesn't make sense to count it.
Okay.
Just my opinion.
Let's throw it out.
No, I agree.
I nominate we throw out the question.
And that may affect somebody, I don't know. That may or may not affect somebody standing right now, I don't know. But he's right, yeah, because with the bad questions, we're taking the bad questions out.
I'm trying to look at the totality of circumstances,
Yes.
trying to make it fair across the board, so yes.
No, I agree.
Mark Medley again. I can tell you that this question would affect me. I did answer it the way that the test writer originally did, but I am in 100% agreement. When you look at it, it's a bad question. It's not right. And so even though I got it right, it's not a good question. So if that eases your mind, I'm one of the people.
Okay.
2 got it right, maybe?
Who got it right?
I'm one of the 2. It's not a good question.
I appreciate that, thank you.
Yes.
All right, so any further discussion? Got a motion?
Made motion.
A motion to remove the test, throw the test out, okay? Throw the question out of the test, yes, sir? Second? Throw the test out.
Second it.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Yeah, throw the test out. That was my inner self. Get the shredder, you know.
The last appeal for the lieutenant's exam is question 80, coming from Effective Police Leadership, Moving Beyond Management, 5th edition. CompStat is a leadership and management by objective program. It allows leaders to set goals and objectives and evaluate officer achievements. Analyzing crime trends and patterns is important because if you can predict it, you can prevent it. There are 4 steps to crime reduction. Which of the following is not one of those steps? A, accurate and timely intelligence, B, rapid deployment, C, effective tactics, and D, all of the above are correct. The answer key says answer A is the correct answer. Appellant says we had 3 appeals on this, and they said that answer D is the correct answer. The test writers state, in our opinion, the appellants are correct. We believe the answer key was inadvertently mismarked. The only correct answer choice is D. All of the above are correct.
This was missed by all 6.
All 6.
I'm guessing they all probably picked D. I'm just thinking, I don't know, but they probably all picked D. Yes. Just another example. Okay, so it's a good question, just it was mismarked by the testers,
Correct.
so.
So I make a motion that everybody that missed it should get credit for this question.
Okay.
Everyone that answered anything or everyone that answered D. All of the above.
It should be D, all of the above.
Right, which is what they, yeah, okay. That is I'm hoping.
Yeah, not all the
Those 6
answers,
put D
right.
down there. Yeah, okay. So, I have a motion,
I second it.
I got a second. Any further discussion on this? Okay, motion's been made, all in favor, aye, say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion's carried. Answer D, you will get credit for that question.
That's all I've got. I will get the test grades recalculated, and I should have them posted by the end of the day.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Got a motion?
I second it.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign, all right. Again, thank you folks for your participation, for your understanding. Thank you for your input. Thank you.